Ooh, okay. So Jack Flaherty signed 2 years, 35 million. And if people were looking at it, to be honest, if we're just going to look at it, the deal is essentially a prove it year for Jack Flaherty. It's stability if he goes out there and doesn't pitch well, but really he goes out there and pitches well, he's going to cash in next year. That's the thought. And I know a lot of people are going, well, wait a minute, why didn't my team insert your favorite team into the conversation? Why didn't we make a move for that guy? Jack was very clear how much he loved playing in Detroit. He said it previous weeks. Scooble just went on and even said how much he loved having Jack there. So the fit was there. Like Jack loved being in Detroit. So if you're going to have a prove it deal, why not go to a place where you had success? And I mean, he was good. He was really good in Detroit. So why not go run it back on an exciting team? Place you're comfortable and you know that you can put up some numbers. Now, Jack, just like some of the other players, and I'm going to do a little breakdown of him here. Some of you guys might have seen it, but I'm going to even articulate it better. Is that um, Jack has to prove that he's healthy consistently, and he has to prove that it wasn't just that bounce back year last year. If he can prove it one more time, he's going to get a lot of money. And Jack's upside is a top 15 pitcher in the league right now. And who wouldn't want that? Scooble, if you're going to say he's top three right now, top five, if we're going to be generous, and then have Jack Flaherty and you have two of those guys on your team, it can be a really scary 1-2 punch. So let's look a little bit closer at this with Jack. So let's take a trip down. I made this video last year at the trade deadline, if you guys might have remembered this. But Jack Flaherty, these were his numbers in the regular season prior to the trade. Great. 3.13 ERA. And the thing I wanted to point out was the strikeout number right there. 119 and 95 innings. Like Jack Flaherty is a strikeout pitcher. He's got wipeout stuff, is like what we like to call that. And so he proved that. And I think a big reason why we started to see the Jack Flaherty rise again and these numbers to go is he made some changes to his pitch selection. So if you guys look at this from 2023 to 2024, there was a lot of pitches there in 2023, and I don't really care as much about the slow curve or the sinker. My biggest thing that I'm noticing here is what's not there in 2024, and that's the cutter. He threw the cutter a lot in 2023, and he didn't have great results, right? So not great results. And I think that the cutter played too much like the slider. Has the same type of movement, but the cutter essentially, if it doesn't move a lot, it's a mediocre fastball, just like a slider. If it doesn't move a lot, it's a little bit of a slower, mediocre fastball. So let me roll the tape a little bit more so we can break this down. Okay, so this is the cutter that I'm talking about here. So when the cutter doesn't move, again, mediocre fastball. So here's going to be a cutter right down the heart of the plate. Ball's going to get launched. That's 90 miles an hour, and the ball barely moves. They teed off on him in Baltimore, right? There's the example. There's one. Here's another one, cutter. It's going to go inside, but it's going to be right over the heart of the plate. 89. Not a lot of movement. Doesn't take him off of it. Another home run. So we're seeing the pattern, right? The pattern that cutter and his slider were not working well together. Okay. So as we keep moving on here, here's going to be Corbin Carroll. And this is going to be a slider. So again, slider, heart of the plate. Doesn't miss it. Doesn't miss the barrel. 85. Right? So 85, 89, 90 miles an hour, 5 mile an hour difference, but the same concept. A hanging breaking ball like that, slider, and a hanging cutter are very hittable pitches. And Jack Flaherty, that combination, I think, was very detrimental to him. And I'll explain why, because if you're going to throw a slider in general with how his pitches work, you're going to have to locate it better. Here's one more example of that slider not breaking at all. I mean, if I back that up here for a second, watch how much this ball doesn't move. Okay, like Adley's glove's just right there. And for Kyle Tucker, he's like, oh, great. That's a slider that just didn't go anywhere, and that ball's launched. Kyle Tucker, pretty good player, too. So this was then that slider when it's over the middle part of the plate. Just one more example of it, because why not? It's hard to get batters out in that circumstance. And if you're going to throw the slider in general, the slider's got to be below the strike zone. Preferably, you want to say 6 to 8 inches below that strike zone there, just for how Jack plays. Like you're going to need that to kind of start low, end low, start low, end lower. There it is, whammy. Another example for Goldsmith: start low, end low. Okay, right. But now when he eliminated the cutter, it makes his slider better, right? So that's what we saw right there. Your slider gets a little bit better. The curveball to me was the big pitch that Jack Flaherty, and that's his out pitch. That is his bread and butter, can get any hitter off guard, and he started throwing that a ton more. Okay, so when I look at this with Jack, you're going to see the movement here, and you're going to see the miles per hour. Okay, taking a little tutorial here, and that type of bite that it has on the curveball. So right there, the bite that it has, and then it can drop off. It throws the right-handed hitters off significantly more, and that's what I saw a lot more with Jack. So once again, you're going to finish down here, but because this curveball has a little bit more height to it, right? There's the height to it. There's the X of where the ball is. Contreras thinks that has to be more of a strike, but because of the angle of the ball with the curveball, we're going to see this thing continue to pop off or pop out, right? 80 miles an hour, right? So we're seeing the difference with all that. And Brent Rooker, friend of the show, friend of the program, unbelievable year for him last year. Same thing, right? It looks like a strike out of the hand. And again, this is Jack making an adjustment as a player, realizing that curveball is a weapon against the right-handed bats. And that was something he didn't do a lot in 2023, did a lot more of it in 2024. And then because he had a curveball that could do that, he then had a slider that wasn't similar to his cutter. That ultimately makes his fastball, which can get up there, get up to 95, 97. But let's just say it stays at 93, 94. His location can be pinpoint. So there's 95 on the black, right? So there's a differentiation between his pitches that makes him stronger. And Jack Flaherty, I think people forget how good he was when he was with the Cardinals to start his career. 97 on the black. Like, this is what he was when he came up to the bigs. The problem with him was over time, injuries, not pitching consistently, and then mentally he got into, had some issues there. And when you struggle mentally as a player, you're going to struggle on the field. It happens. But look at his changes right there. That 45% curveball whiff percentage or strikeout percentage, that's the curveball. But then look at the rest of his numbers when he eliminated the cutter and focused more on the curveball, slider, and fastball. All of those numbers increased because it made eliminating the pitch allow the other pitches to be better, and being able to use his out pitches curveball more against right-handed hitters makes him that much more lethal, makes his slider better, makes it just overall makes everything better. So Jack Flaherty is a guy that I know that Birdland, when he came to Baltimore in 23, didn't work out. And you could say his body language wasn't fully healthy. That's a problem. And then he was dealing with some things internally, mentally, and maybe there was things that weren't exactly right, sure. But he was trying to get right. He was frustrated. So that's why when I look at Detroit, yeah, it was a really friendly deal for Detroit. But it's friendly for him too because he found himself again. And when you find yourself in a place and you feel like you have that confidence, don't you want to go back to a place you know you're going to have success? So it was the perfect spot for him to go back to. Great move for the Tigers. I think he's going to pitch very well unless he gets hurt, but he's going to pitch very well. He's going to go back into the market in 26, and someone's going to pay him a lot. Maybe it will be Detroit. So good for him. But I want to preface that I don't think he would have done that for many other teams. I think that it was because of the Tigers that he felt the most comfortable with. It made the most sense. So there it is. Tigers got better. Tigers' rotation's better. I don't know if that takes him out of the Alex Bregman sweepstakes. It might. But there it is.